You're listening to 88.7 WLUW Chicago Sound Alliance, broadcasting from the campus of Loyola University. It's live from the Heartland, featuring Michael James and Katy Hogan.
Hey, good morning, and welcome to another edition of Live from the Heartland. And thank you first, Martin Luther King, talking about reparations and the Poor People's Campaign in 1968. And thank you, Mavis Staples, for singing us Living on the High Note. Get ready for another edition of Live from the Heartland. I'm Michael James. I'm here today with Katy Hogan. Tom Clark is in somewhere in the Carolinas.
South Carolina.
Soaking up maybe the sun.
God only knows.
So you have to listen, just Katy and I going at each other and sharing some information today with our good friend Jeff Smith will be coming on, and then we've got the Robinson Family Singers. So it's going to be a wonderful show with a lot of discussion.
You know, Michael, one of the reasons that you and I worked early on when we first met was that we both had a pretty strong and undying love for Martin Luther King Jr. and everything he stood for and most of what he said his lifetime. Am I right?
We were just talking earlier how one of the few people who made me cry over and over is Dr. King, and I'm glad to say that I did get to meet him twice and spoke from the same stage at the Coliseum back in '66, and he still inspires me.
Absolutely.
And I remember when there were people, Malcolm X was on the scene and Dr. King, and there was divisions. I liked them both.
Yeah, exactly. Well, starting today out with that is meaningful in that it's been a rough week for civil rights, for justice, for equity, all the way around. The judges, thank you, fairness is the right word. The judge's sentence of 81 months for Van Dyke, which amounts to 6 years, 9 months.
With time off for time served and probation, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly, which happened the day after they let off the cover-up crew scot-free.
Scot-free.
Scot-flippin' free people.
And one of the lawyers of the cover-up crew was an ally and a fellow worker with the judge who made the decision.
Yeah, if you want to know the real truth about the story of all the judges and all the legalese that was in that, check out Truth Out for Flint Taylor's incredibly complete piece on all of the personalities.
We'd have quoted from it, but we made copies that were too small for old people to read.
It's a little too much information. Okay. According to the LA Times, thousands more families were separated at the border than we all knew about back when it was a daily outrage. And I say that pointedly. Why is it not still a daily flippin' outrage? I know why. Oh, I remember. There's a shutdown. Government shutdown. From the guy who doesn't believe in government. What a surprise.
I have another sad note. Comrade brother Tom Du Bois, who was part of Rising Up Angry and Lake Calumet environmental things, he passed away on the 17th. He's in Revolutionary Heaven, and along with some other people. And
well, we also cannot not mention Mary Oliver, one of... a magic sister of words. She passed this week as well, a couple days ago, and social media has been alight with her poetry and her incredible gifts that she shared over these years. She was an unusually accessible poet to most people. So bless you, Mary
Katy,
Oliver.
can you fill us in on the Women's March today all around the country?
Happening. Yeah, it's happening.
In the snow or no?
Well, in Chicago, it'll be in the snow. I mean, it depends on where you are, baby. It's going to be a smaller one because of the mayhem and goofiness that occurred.
And also the call that they're going to, next year will be a big one getting ready for the 2020 elections.
Yes,
I read that somewhere, that the Women's March will be bigger next year.
Well, part of the reason it's a little less than right now is that there was a march in October that was meant to lead people to the polls. That was the Women's March. Some people said, I've had my marching for the winter period done, next time. So today there will be people marching in Chicago at the Federal Plaza. Also in New Lenox, there's a sort of larger march plan, New Lenox, Illinois. I can't remember. Maybe our guest, Jeff, will tell me why that's happening.
Yeah, I'd like to know.
I don't know if he knows or not. And maybe the one in D.C. will be big. The weather's clearly going to have an effect. But also today in Chicago is the evolution of Chicago machine and black politics. It's happening from 1 to 3 p.m. at the Greenstone United Methodist Church at 112th South St. Lawrence. See ya.
That's way south. Maybe there's not so much snow.
That's where I come from. But they've got great panelists: David Orr, Latessa Wallace, Jay Young, D'Angelo Bester, Jerry Brown, veteran political consultant, and Samina Mustafa is the moderator. Basically talking about what we should be talking about, which is the evolution of machine politics and black politics in Chicago as we face another mayoral.
Now, Katy Hogan, you have a couple of other things listed here on our for our banner. They're dates with not a lot of information. So, what's happening on the 22nd of January?
All right, let me start with the 21st, okay?
Okay.
There's a Chicago Women Take Action meet and greet, candidate meet and greet at Half Sour, which is 755 South Clark. It's like Clark and Polk. Chicago Women Take Action are one of the partners who did the Chicago Women's March. They're also very active. We've had one of the founders of it on the show a number of times, Marilyn Katz. But Chicago Women Take Action is a good group. Meeting agenda will be about, combining the Martin Luther King Jr. Day and women who marched with him, update on the upcoming healthcare forum that they're co-sponsoring. So that is, again, Monday, I guess, the 21st. What did you ask me about?
I was asking about the 22nd, but I'm just going to give a shout out to Paige James, who's got a birthday on the 21st, Katy Hogan, Lori Pentel, and probably a bunch of other people whose birthdays on the 22nd. And there's another event on the 22nd. It's the National Day of Racial Healing Storytelling.
Right.
That must be something you know about.
You know what? I don't have the...
Well, let's move right along then.
I don't have that.
Also on the same day, there's something about democratizing Chicago police.
Yeah, democratizing police accountability. It's a town hall with aldermanic candidates, and it's going to be held at Unity Lutheran at 1212 West Balmoral Avenue in the Edgewater neighborhood from 6 to 8:30 p.m. I have no idea which candidates have said they're there, that they're coming, but it is about police accountability. Again,
now, we
hot
talk
topic.
Politics a lot on this show, and
Can't help ourselves.
One of the things that both Katy and I attended was a wonderful aldermanic debate in the 49th Ward on Tuesday night.
Yeah, we not
Katy, you
only-
want to give a little report on that?
It's just probably one of the best preps for an aldermanic race that I've seen in our neighborhood in about 20 years. I just have never seen that many people
About 700 people filled the
sitting
Sullivan High School
quietly
auditorium.
and listening, thanks to the
The
League of
rules
Women.
were no clapping, no cheering, nothing.
The League of Women Voters
Just
made
smile.
it a place you could actually hear what was going on, and also kept it moving right along. Two of my questions got asked.
Well, you had clout there.
And no.
It was just by accident?
Yes,
Okay,
totally.
Just asking.
Jeez. Screw with us right there online, on air. There were so many questions written. The League of Women Voters person held up the two packets, the cards she had asked the questions off of, and the cards that still had questions, and it was pretty impressive. She was very impressed. She said,
The
I've
League of
never
Women
seen...
Voters, they were great. And she said that was the largest kind of meeting like that she'd been to, and the most questions. And
Yeah.
one of the things that was really interesting to me was, I know the principal, Chad,
Chad Williams.
he was talking a lot about the school, which has really made a wonderful comeback in many ways. And there were many students from Sullivan involved and participating, handling the questions.
Oh, yeah,
It
they
was
were
good.
full partners in the
Yeah.
whole thing. It was great. It was wonderful. It's the sort of thing that we should be doing all the time, politically and community-wise. Okay, so let's get on to the show, shall we?
So we have another musical break here.
I think we do.
We're going to listen to Reckoning by Billy Price.
It's coming for you. Yeah, there's going to be a reckoning. God only knows if there's going to be a reckoning, but we've got a big storm happening outside, kind of almost normal weather, which is amazing because we have not had normal weather. And I am so happy that we're having normal weather when we have our good friend Jeffrey Smith, lawyer, and longtime neighbor, old friend, who got called this week to be a guest based on, showing off that you were at the inauguration with the governor this week. We said, oh, all right, if that guy's, rubbing shoulders with the newly electeds in Springfield, we definitely need to have him up here and talking, being the political gadfly that you are.
Well, I had to say yes as a career move. I figure the political establishment will say it's a lot less dangerous to have me working in government than out there as a pundit.
Yeah, you probably will do both in your life.
So how was the inauguration in Springfield? Tell us about it.
It was a lot of happiness. It was packed. They had a good band. I mean, everybody can hire Maroon 5 for their party, right? So.
Oh, really?
Maroon 5 was the headliner at
Hokies.
the
I heard it was
inauguration
going to be
ball.
Paul McCartney.
That rumor was going around, and
I said, whoa.
maybe Sir Paul's price tag was a little too high.
Jiminy Christmas. Maroon 5. So people were boogieing.
There was dancing.
I understand JB gave a great speech.
He gave a real good speech. It was better than his acceptance speech.
Which was
thought.
Which was
Impressive.
also quite good.
No, he hit all the right notes. I thought he sounded relaxed, natural, authentic. I liked that he touched on lakes and prairies in the middle of it. He committed to joining the climate change conference and
Great.
said a lot of the right things.
When he
all of the right things.
When he was in Rogers Park, I asked him directly if he would ban fracking in Illinois, and he said yes, in front of about 250 people, which I then turned to and said, "You heard him, right?" So, is he going to be able to do that, do you think?
Well, it's really up to the legislature. The governor alone can't do it unless there was an emergency. The executive branch has to follow and implement what the legislature has done. And right now there's a law on the books. As a practical matter, and with the price of oil as low as it is, nobody's going to be trying to frack in Illinois unless they're just trying to hold on to their permit.
Their leases.
But all it would take would be one conflagration in the Middle East, and who knows, we could be back up $85, $100 a barrel. And if that looks like it was going to be long term, it could be a threat again. It's good that we've got a law in place now. I was highly involved in the developing the rules on that, as you know, but it could stand some improvement, and a lot of people are understandably nervous.
U.S. is the largest producer of oil now in the world.
Yes, it
Just
is.
throwing that in. I didn't know that. I figured somewhere else was.
And that's the thing about Illinois. I think most people don't realize that fracking here would be different than in some states. It wouldn't be a natural gas play so much as an oil play, I think, is the
And what
geological
difference
consensus.
does that make?
Well, it makes a difference in whether it's economical to drill a well or not.
Right. Okay. So it's harder
Because
to do.
they're two different markets.
Right.
I want to go back to J.B. Pritzker, our new governor, and I want to get your general opinions on your thoughts on him and how you think he'll be, and what are the issues that he might need encouragement on from the progressives or from the masses. Just give us a little overview.
Well, I've actually known JB for a few decades. He lived in, not well, we don't go bowling together, although I wouldn't mind
Who
it.
do you go bowling with? Never mind. We'll
Do you
do that
bowl?
later.
I do bowl. If I could hold my own in a league.
Ay, ay, ay.
But JB used to live in Evanston for a little while and used to office in the same building as me in downtown Evanston. And I think pretty much what you see is what you get. He's pretty authentic and kind of a normal guy, not quite Ralph Cramden. He's smarter than that, right? He went to Duke and Northwestern, I think, but he's not full of himself. He doesn't have any illusion that he hit a triple by being born on third base,
Yeah, right.
And that's important.
Yeah,
because
it is.
one of the themes I've hit on all my career is the disconnect between government and the governed, and it's really important that you have a governor who really tries to reach out and understand what folks who aren't in his situation are going through, and I think you will see that.
You've been a longtime civic activist. Environmental is one of your major fields of play. You even served in the Illinois Department of Natural Resources as general counsel under
yeah.
Pat Quinn, and that's when you just referred to helping write the directives around the fracking stuff. Did that happen then?
Well, the department had to implement the rules that would flesh out the law that had been passed by the General Assembly. So that was a pretty intense process because we got a record-breaking number of public comments for the department, thousands and thousands of comments. It filled a room this size.
And how did they break down? How did they? Yeah.
I'd say the vast majority had concerns to very strong opposition.
Okay.
There were, on both sides, but by and large, I'd say it was 9-1 or more in opposition to one or more aspects of the law and demanding stronger regulation.
So you also served on a statewide commission on offshore wind energy.
Yes.
Are we going to get any wind farms in the Great Lakes? Or do we already have some that I don't know about?
Well, Illinois is actually among the top 5-6 states in wind energy, but the best wind energy in the Midwest, if you look at a map of the United States, is actually right over the Great Lakes. Now, it has to be done safely and with concern, especially for migratory birds and
Right.
to a lesser extent bats. But birds want to, by and large, hug the coastline. If you're choosing to migrate, taking a direct path over open water isn't the intuitive choice. Not that I've ever been a bird, and we do have a
You sound
body
like
of
you've talked to them, though.
we do have a body of data from around the world. I mean, we have to be careful with everything that's going on in the world of fauna. Okay, the biomass of the planet is in peril right now. There
Big
was
trouble.
an important article by Brooke Jarvis in the New York Times Magazine right around Thanksgiving called "The Insect Apocalypse," and the number of species that are seeing massive declines, and that's at the bottom of the food chain for all the birds and all the rodents and everything all the way up.
Yeah.
And so it's. I consider the Department of Natural Resources possibly the most important agency in the state of Illinois. A, because it manages the largest publicly owned carbon sink that we have, and second, because to me, environmental issues are the defining issue of this generation right now for the next and the next, including all the grandkids kids who are having.
Well, I would add to that. It's only more important given who's sitting in the White House right now, who clearly doesn't give a flying hoot about any of the environmental truths that we've all been unearthing for the last 30, 40 years.
It's really a lost opportunity at a very critical time for the planet.
No kidding.
Well, I know the environment is really the key, but one of the issues that we do not talk here a lot about, and I'd like to know what you think JB might do on this, JB being the new governor, is the prison system in Illinois. Back in the 60s and 70s, we talked a lot about prisons and people being incarcerated, and I know we do have overcrowded jails. We've had some people from women's prisons in on the show before. Any sense where Pritzker's at on the prison system in the state?
I think that Governor Pritzker will prove to be a humanist, and that will be one of the defining characteristics of his administration. I think he gets, and certainly will have people around him who get the damage that's been done to really a couple generations because of the, quote, war on crime that started
War on drugs.
When really it started when Nixon was running for
Yes,
office.
that's
how
right.
he ended up beating Humphrey, was with fear-mongering that laid the groundwork for some of the more toxic politics that we're experiencing today. And let's be clear, it did have an impact in reducing crime, but it was at an enormous cost to especially communities of color and low income in this country.
And relationship between those communities and the forces of the police, et cetera, and government.
Were you going to follow up on that?
I wasn't.
Okay, then I'm gonna do another thing because Jeff Smith and we go back quite a ways, so I do want to just remember the good old days, because we were both working in the 49th Ward when we broke through and beat the regulars, thanks to David Orr, a very knockdown and tumble election that was in 1979.
It was cleaner. Well, I didn't get back here till '82, but it was cleaner times in some ways, because there was. It seemed good versus evil, and if you didn't live through it, I think a lot of folks don't understand that aspect of Democratic politics in the city of Chicago and Cook County.
It's funny that you call it cleaner times. You mean cleaner to be able to tell who's good and who's evil? Seriously. Because, we were going to the back of the voting machine still to see if votes were cast before we opened the polling places.
Oh, I'm not saying the elections were cleaner.
Okay. I needed to straighten that out.
Although they may have been, because nobody was talking about Russian hacking or cybersecurity back then.
True that. We didn't have, but we still, the Democratic Party of Cook County could still figure out ways to find votes. So I do remember, though, you and I partnering up during the Washington campaigns.
We coach it. You were coordinating all the lakefront wards, as I recall,
Yeah.
and I was either chair or co-chair of the 49th ward, and we did it with index cards back then.
We did indeed. No computers, no email.
I had a computer.
But I remember, show off, you got that from going to law school at Harvard, I reckon.
No, I was just an early adopter.
Yeah. You were always ahead of the game, Jeff, but I do recall you having something that we would call guerrilla visibility. Do you remember doing guerrilla visibility?
It sounds like some kind of youthful indiscretion. But,
There you go.
Back when you were from McGovern.
I'm sure that occasionally people were putting up signs and things where maybe they shouldn't have been, but most of our effort was just old-fashioned knocking on doors and getting out the vote.
You're listening to the
let's be
Live
honest.
from the Heartland show, brought to you every Saturday morning on WLUW Chicago Sound Alliance. This is Michael James. I'm here with Katy Hogan and a bunch of other people who are helping out. And we're talking to our comrade brother Jeff Smith, and we've been talking mostly about the state. But even though Jeff lives out of town in the next town over and can't vote for our next alderman's or alderwoman's or mayor, who do you like and what do you see happening? Can you give us a little overview, your take on the upcoming mayoral elections?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you've got a lot of people running is maybe the best argument I've ever seen for having instant runoff voting systems.
Right.
Because the real danger is that you could end up with two candidates that
Nobody wants.
that collectively don't represent the real choice that folks would like to see. So it'd be great if you could have a system instituted where if your candidate doesn't get in, your vote goes to the next choice, and so on and so forth. That said, there's really only about 8 candidates who I think who have a chance of making the runoff.
Who are they?
Well, I think that
Excuse me. Tony
I'm gonna use-
Preckwinkle.
Tony
Mendoza.
Chico Mendoza. You have to give Daley a chance.
I
Simply.
don't have to give him diddly.
Well, as an odds maker, I think Vallis and Lightfoot are vying for the quote outsider insider track,
Yep.
and then I think under certain conditions, votes could break for McCarthy or for Enya.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, Willie Wilson. I just don't see it this time around. But Tony Preckwinkle has to be the odds-on favorite. But there's been a few hits that her campaign's endured. I think over the
Talk
there's
about
certainly
that.
fodder, and the other candidates are going to gang up on her.
Yeah, but they do have 4 weeks. She can climb out from that Ed Burke stuff that she's already claiming, not me, and I returned some money, etc.
I mean, some of it's all relative. You look at what we've had for the last 4 years in Illinois. You look what's going on in the White House, and you say, "Gee, I could live with almost any of these
Yeah,
folks as
right.
mayor." By comparison, as you've noted, one of the things that's important to me is environmental issues. So I looked at all their websites last night, and I didn't see anybody having an environmental platform. Now, I know that folks like the Illinois Environmental Council have been interviewing candidates and trying to school them on these issues, and I understand that Lori Lightfoot came out with a platform maybe in the last couple days, and Tony Preckwinkle, I saw, had given a few ideas to the Sun-Times in an interview, but I'd like to see them really saying what they're going to do for the coming generations, because this is one of the biggest defining issues of our generation. At least that's what President Obama said, and I often agree with him.
Well, we've heard about some baggage that Tony has, and it, connects to Burke, et cetera. But what about Lori Lightfoot, who probably, as a federal prosecutor, I believe, there's probably some issues people have with her. Can you cite what they might be?
I think you have to separate what somebody does as a lawyer, where you have a client and your duty is to serve your client, from what they might do as an administrator. I think it's best to look at what she's really promising to do for the people of the city of Chicago, and whether you think she has the chops to follow through on that as an executive. And the post of mayor of Chicago is a, quote, strong mayor, unquote, position, unlike, say, Evanston, which is a council manager form of government. So you have a great deal of power, and it's not unlike Cook County Board president or the president of the Metropolitan Water District, where a lot of clout resides in the chief executive. And the question is, are you going to use it for good or for evil?
When you hear somebody like Bill Daley talking about going from 50 aldermen to 15 or 50 to 25 or whatever he's proposing, that seems incredibly out of the box and almost too radical for him to be putting forth. Well, is that meaningful? Is he just flapping his jaws? He wants to cut all that political power out from underneath the Democratic Party in Cook County?
Bill Daley's a smart guy. I don't understand I don't think the problem with Chicago is that it's got too many aldermen, or that there's too much input by the citizens. If you reduce the amount of representation, then it becomes that much harder for the average citizen to have input to get a meeting. According to the U.S. Constitution, we should have a couple thousand people in Congress, because you're not supposed to have more than, I want to say, one for every 30,000. Obviously, we haven't kept up with that. We haven't changed the size of Congress since before World War II. Before that, it was actually on the increase. And so now you've got a situation where one congressperson is trying to represent 750,000 people or so, and it's just really hard to get an audience. So I don't see reducing the council as being the answer to the problem.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go back to the mayoral candidates one more time on Vallis. There are people I know who are progressives who have liked things about Vallis. I've always had a real problem with him because he brought in a lot of charter school stuff, kind of messed up schools, I think, in New Orleans and Bridgeport,
Totally.
Connecticut. Do you have a take on Vallis?
Paul Vallis is another smart guy. The press seems to like him as a policy wonk, and maybe bringing more candor to issues like pensions than other candidates want to engage in. And let's be realistic, anybody who's coming in is going to have to confront that. Paul's problem is that he seems to have a vortex, a black hole of vote-getting ability, and I think that's a phrase that maybe he's referred to himself.
That could have helped bring down our last governor, or two times, back Quinn in the day.
Well, if that election turned on a lot of things, but I don't know that Paul Vallis brought a lot to the ticket, and a lot, as you've observed, a lot of the unions are still pretty ticked at him, largely over charter schools. But I think he'll get some traction, especially in the business press, for being realistic and cognizant of fiscal issues.
Lastly, we could talk about each mayoral candidate, but what about Amara? What do you think's going on with her? She's obviously sharp, has a lot of ideas, getting some money from big-time players, just got $400,000 from Chance. Your take on her and her chances?
A lot of energy, charismatic. she's a long shot, but I wouldn't count her out of it, because you look at some of the other races around the country. You look at AOC and Presley out east, and some of these other
Massachusetts.
Even here in Illinois, we had some upsets in the General Assembly races out in some of the suburbs. People that nobody thought had a chance of winning. So the voters are, like you said, 700 people showing up in Rogers Park. The
Right.
voters are maybe paying attention a little more, but
I mean,
they might do unpredictable things.
In our neck of the woods, the front runners in the mayoral are Tony, Amara, Lori. Seriously, the front runners are all women of color, and you could put Mendoza just behind that, although she does not have the kind of excitement that those other three do have in their supporters. So we'll see.
Well, there's a big sense that business as usual just isn't getting it done, and that we need some change. And I think people are willing to vote for they're willing to vote for the unknown over something that they know hasn't gotten the job done. And it's really not
Well, they
fair
did
to
that
some
on the
people.
presidential elections last time, too,
Well-
and it kind of stuck us.
Be careful what you ask for. You might get it, right?
Jeff Smith, thank you for your lifelong, unusual combination of working both inside and outside government, inside and outside the movements. You're incredibly valuable because of that, and so we may well call on you again.
That's kind of you, Katy, and I just hope that everybody stays as involved as they can, because that's the real hope for our democracy.
Bingo. Thank you so much, and we will be right back with the Rachel Robinson Family Singers. And that was our guest. The next guest coming up, the next voice you hear, will be that of Rachel Robinson. Welcome to Live from the Heartland.
Thank you for having us.
And
Thank
what a lovely piece that we just heard. The title of that was, I'm missing it.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Well, why don't you introduce your family to us?
This is my lovely mother, Robin Robinson.
Good morning.
My sister, Noemi Robinson.
Wow.
My brother, Isaiah Robinson.
Oh, thank you all for making it up here this morning.
Thank you for having
That
us.
was kind of tricky, no?
Oh, yeah.
And is Rachel Robinson named after Rachel Robinson of Jackie Robinson?
Absolutely not.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah.
That was the first Rachel Robinson I knew of.
Yes, although it is an honor.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just like the name.
I have a sister named Leah as well.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what brought you guys into singing together? Sounds like it just happened in the house, right?
I'll let my mother answer that.
Right on. Thank you.
Actually, we started singing together as a unit when we joined a church in 1992. The children were small, and we all joined the choir. And we started singing choir songs at home. Mm-hmm. And we're missing a few people today. But we kind of found out quickly that we had a small choir of our own. And so we, after that, just began going out and learning more songs, but started singing the songs that we learned at church.
Beautiful.
And then if I can add to that,
Yes,
we had an
please.
older brother, Chris Robinson, who since passed away. Before we started singing in the choir, he would actually compose songs for us to sing in the house, around the kitchen table, tell us what to sing. So that's when we got our really early beginnings, was with Chris.
Yeah. As far as learning parts.
Yeah.
But she was asking about us singing together as a family. So yeah.
Yeah.
And Chris, songs like Ooh Chop Suey and Did You Find Your Coat?
Right.
Can you do one of those?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We got two others scheduled first. So maybe do you want to warm up and give us a little singing right now?
Oh, sure.
I think we're going to hear.
The piece we're going to sing for you guys is called How Great Thou Art, written by Jason Shepard. 1, 2.
Lord, we bow down at your holy name. You are worthy. Let the earth proclaim for your mercy. Let Lord, you are worthy to be praised. Oh Lord, we bow before you now, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. How great thou art! How great thou art! How great thou art! How great thou art! Lord, you are worthy to be praised. Lord, you are worthy to be praised. Lord, you are worthy. Lord, you're worthy praised. Yes, you're worthy. You are worthy. Lord, you're worthy praised. Lord, you're worthy praise. Yes, you're worthy. You are worthy to be praised. Ooh.
Nice.
All right. Let's hear it for.
That was really nice.
Okay, I guess I'm the only one with hands. Boy, yeah, that was stunning, stirring. You moved the room. This is too small of a room for you guys, for your voices. Wow.
When you have your whole crew with you, how many people are in the group?
7.
7 of you.
Wow. And it's all
Well,
all blood.
Yes, all siblings.
All
and my
siblings.
mom.
And my mom.
I come from a large family myself. I understand.
and they can sing. They do Irish tunes.
We do. We can harmonize. You know, today we started with a little bit of a tape from Martin Luther King Jr. And when I was looking up pieces last night, when we had the Heartland on King Day, we would put quotes from King on each of the tables to remind people of, you know, one of the greatest Americans that we could emulate and look to for guidance. And he remains that for me always. When I looked up this thing last night, it said, this is the speech that got Dr. King killed. And it was about, he was referring to post-Reconstruction, 40 acres and a mule, and that, you know, white sharecroppers got yada, yada, yada. He said it all. It was at the top of the show. But, of course, the African Americans or former slaves did not. And the end piece was that when we go to Washington this year, we're going for a check. We're going to,
Yep.
we're coming to get our check,
Yep.
is what he said. And, of course, he never made it to Washington that year because he was killed in Memphis. What is his legacy, the importance of his legacy, if you can speak to it from your own point of view? We'd love to hear that.
I can. I think that the one thing that's important about his legacy to me is the fact that I know that he was a preacher. That he was a preacher, that he was a pastor, that he had a congregation, that he was first a religious leader before he became a leader of the people. And he used what God gave him to reach the masses, you know, from his sincerity of heart and the issues at hand, but also because of his skill as a gospel preacher. And I think many people forget that. And then as an educator, I'd like to add that part of his legacy that stands out to me also is his education. and the fact that he started college at 15 years old, and these other things that speak to his excellence, as a scholar. And, unfortunately, I don't think enough attention is given to that in making, presentations about him to young people today. But just, something that as part of his legacy, his academic excellence and tenacity and, all of these things are noteworthy, especially, today.
Yeah. And I look at you, and we're of the same generation, and we were touched by him while he was alive, and I'm sorry to the rest of you youngsters who missed him. But you got him, I know, from her. And what did you get about him and about what it means now to still care about him?
Well, me personally, I can speak to that, as I have since the age of 19 played Dr. Martin Luther King in a show about Dr. Martin Luther King.
This is Elias.
Isaiah. But since the age of 19, I've had to embody Dr. Martin Luther King, and I've got a few of his speeches committed to memory.
Wow.
And even tomorrow, I'm going to be presenting some excerpts of them at the Interfaith Breakfast for Jesse Jackson, and, which is a lot of pressure because I've been doing it, for a long time, 15 or 16 years, but never in front of someone who worked with Dr. King. Wow. So
that's great.
Right, so that's that's a little bit of pressure, but
You'll do fine.
I'm sure with faith and
Do you want to
confidence.
practice? You want to practice a line or two?
Come on, Isaiah, quickly.
Well, only just answer your question quickly. In terms of what it means, to us as younger generation who weren't affected by him while he was alive. A lot of what my mother touched on, in terms of his education and his tenacity, his work ethic. These are things that after generations that have come after, perhaps lack. We have different work ethic, or lack thereof. We have a different view on education and its usefulness. Based on so many variables. And moving parts within the education system itself, and how it's set up today versus how it was set up 60 years ago or 50 years ago, and how it benefits the students today versus how it benefits the students that were in it 60 years ago, and so many of the distractions that are in our lives today that were not around 60 years ago that, that make not paying it. It makes it a lot different, and so I think
Well said, Isaiah.
I think with all of those things, we've been distracted from a lot of what made Dr. King's life and upbringing so great, and so I feel like in focusing on those aspects of his life, and I think that's how we can really overcome so many of the roadblocks that are still in place that he was trying to help us get around when he was still here, by the example that he set,
Do you guys all live in Chicago?
Yes.
Yes.
Who are you voting for mayor?
Can't say that.
Okay, let me just say
Are you united?
We are voting. We are
We
voting.
are voting. And I do know who I'm voting for.
Me too.
What ward do you live in?
Oh, I don't know. I just moved, so I don't know what ward I'm
You're in
in.
the 8th ward.
I'm in the 8th ward.
Okay.
Okay.
You re-register.
Yeah, I think I already have.
All right.
Okay. I think I'm in the 5th ward.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Kenwood kids.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
We
you're
all
in the
attended
5th as
Kenwood.
well?
Yes.
We all attended Kenwood
Pat Dow,
Academy.
your older woman?
No, Pat
No,
Dow
that's-
is not, but I'm very familiar with her.
That's 3rd ward.
Yeah.
That's third, that's
Yeah.
right, that's right.
Yes.
Now, Katy said when you all came in that you had all worked in the movie The Fugitive.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or some of you did, because I was in that flick playing.
Yes.
Yes. So one of our the brothers that's not here was actually had a speaking role. He was Joel Robinson. He was on the gurney.
In the elevator with Harrison Ford.
In the elevator,
Yeah, that's our
and
brother.
we did some We did some
Was he
work
the
as a
was he
family.
the kid that he said put him right into surgery?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was him, and he went on to do some other things. And my son Chris was in there for a snippet. And actually, we had a segment as a family that cut out of the film, but
we all know that experience.
yes, but that is something, and actually part of the family accomplishments are their involvements in film and television, which there were many. They did primetime TV and a couple of feature films, Richie Rich, Hook.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good for you all.
Yes, indeed. Yep, God
Hey,
is good.
should we hear
Good.
another song now?
I hope so.
Because I
Alright.
can't believe how you filled this room. We should probably open the door and let it blast out. But are you prepared for Psalm 91?
Psalm 91.
Is that what you want to do?
Before you start
sing.
singing this song, though, where can you be heard? Where can we find information on you?
Well, we're all on social media. We all post when we have various events. My Instagram is Rachel Loves You, RachelLovesyu, and we sing at church. We've did a performance at Soho House recently. Partnered with Chance the Rapper to do that. Chance the Rapper and Kirsten Corley to bring a holiday spectacular to Soho House. So we sing around town, and we're very active on social media, and we will continue to post when we are singing together.
Okay. Well, do your thing.
All right.
Yeah.
He is my 1, 2, 3. He is my refuge and my fortress and my God. In him will I trust and dwell in him. He is my refuge and my fortress and my God. In him will I trust and dwell in him. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High God shall abide, shall abide. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High God shall abide, shall abide under the shadows of the Almighty God. Oh, under the shadows of the Almighty God. Oh, under the shadows of the Almighty God. That's where you'll find a hiding place under the shadows of the Almighty God. Woo!
Wow.
All right. Please let me not be the only hand. Come on.
Rachel Robinson Family Singers. Is that the correct way to call you?
Yes, the
Robinson
Robinson Family Singers.
Thank you so much. See you later, Isaiah. That was only 4 voices, people out there listening. Wasn't that incredible? You know what? I'm thinking of Sweet Honey of the Rock when I hear you.
Oh, wow.
You hip to them, of course.
Yes.
Of
Love
course.
them. Love them.
So let me just ask you, because it was here on our questions. So 3 of you went to historically black colleges?
Yes.
Which ones?
I attended Xavier University, New Orleans, Louisiana.
Excellent.
And
I attended Howard University in Washington, D.C., and I have a brother who is currently at Howard University as well. He's one of the
Beautiful.
ones
the
that's
baby of the
Beautiful.
family.
The baby.
Matthew.
And what is this about the jingle business and background vocal work? Because I'm excited about this movie that's coming out about background singers.
Okay.
Have you heard about that?
No.
I have not.
It's look it up. It's happening right now. It's in Chicago, playing. I think maybe it's Siskel Center. But
Okay.
you guys, what's your experience with both this
Well,
jingle business?
Yeah.
Let's see if I can give you a snapshot version.
There you go. That would be good.
Actually, their dad and I were both pretty popular jingle singers when the industry was really moving here in
Right,
Chicago.
right,
You know,
right.
that climate has changed.
Yeah, the Mad Men days in Chicago.
Yeah.
Right.
But we were blessed to be involved, you know, and in many houses we were first call. And, you know, saw that whole life and that whole transition. And then I think I had more experience than their dad's singing background for different people, but mostly as a studio background singer for I have some great recording credits of Mariah Carey, Celine Dion,
Excellent.
and more and more and more. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
sure.
You know, and then we're blessed to do, you know, a couple of mini tours and, you know, things like that. And, you know, but transitioned into gospel. I still do other things, you know, sometimes. But Chicago has been very good to me, you know, and to their dad. And their dad got active in jobbing bands, and a lot are familiar with him
And
because
is
he's
he
still out
still
there
with us?
doing that.
Yes,
He's still around.
I just had to ask it that way because he's not with us.
Yeah.
How many kids did you two have together?
We had 7 children together. We lost one son in 2010,
Sorry.
who was just was a wonderful songwriter
Ah.
and producer. And we're actually planning a project that he wanted us to do. You know,
Good.
to hopefully we can get that up and off the ground this summer. That's our plan.
Great.
And and everybody sings individually and, you know, and together. I think everybody kind of went off. And then as a proud mother, she did mention that she is a Xavier University of
Yes.
New Orleans alum, as I am, even though I didn't graduate from there. But she also is a graduate of Southern University in Baton Rouge, and she has her JD. I'm very proud to say.
All right.
How about that?
Okay.
Okay.
I've got a lawyer right out there on the other side of that glass.
Okay,
You can do your secret handshake or whatever.
Okay, cool.
Hey, what was your biggest musical influences, quick, before we run out of time?
For me, hands down, Stevie Wonder
Right
and
on.
Donny Hathaway and Layla Hathaway. They
Excellent.
are my top 3, hands down.
All right.
Hands down, Aretha. Okay.
Hands down, Aretha.
Hands down, Aretha. You know, I was listening to her, and it was the background singers that I tuned right into. And my practices at home in front of the mirror were singing the background to the old Aretha songs.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Oh, my biggest. Oh, just a quick side note. For the past, I want to say 3 years, I've been on tour with Chance the Rapper as a background vocalist. And my biggest musical influences, hands down for me, would probably be Michael Jackson.
All right.
And Joni Mitchell.
Excellent.
And James
Get a
Taylor.
little white girl in there. All right. I love that. Yeah, so you got it covered. And if we had asked Isaiah, he'd do another song.
He would say Joni Mitchell.
And
Joni Mitchell.
How about Ray Charles and the Raylettes?
Oh,
no,
yeah.
not for me.
I like Ray Charles and the Raylettes. But yeah.
Okay,
And then a bit of jazz in there, too.
We got to go out now because it's over.
Oh, okay.
It's over, and we want to thank the Robinson Family Singers
Thank
for
you.
being with us today.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And we also want to thank everybody who makes this show possible. And we're not going to say their names because it's time to do good in the world. The world needs all the good that you do.
All power.
All power to the people.
All right.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You.
Okay, don't leave yet.